Good morning, communication colleagues. This is Timothy Lampley from the Fall 2019 COM 525 course, hosted by California Baptist University via the Online Professional Studies program under the watchful gaze and tutelage of Professor Sandra Romo, PhD. Of course, this is week 5 of our course, and this is the third discussion board of which we are to provide a video presentation. So here it is by yours truly. Presentation order will be as follows. We're going to review and answer these questions. How does Daniel's research intersect with the chapter readings this week? What is Daniel's hypothesis about the impact of images of women athletes on girls and women? There's a sub-question that's attached to that. How does she go about studying it? The next question is, what sort of images of women athletes does the author find has a positive effect on girls? And of course, there's a sub-question with this. How do you think this research could be used to change the way media presents women athletes? And we'll continue with our questions. A very important question. How can Christians use this type of research to share biblical and Christian worldview perspectives? And then the last question, propose a way to utilize this research to help adolescent girls. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Okay, the first question, how does Daniel's research intersect with the chapter readings this week? So in order for me to answer that question for you, I provided a comparison between Daniel's research and the textbook readings, and then found or located the intersectionality between the two. So first, Daniel's research acknowledges that there are copious amounts of data regarding media effects on girls and women regarding sexualized images of female athletes. Okay, and the textbook reading seems to corroborate that by stating that media exposure is a key factor in the development of body image disturbance. Okay, so then the second point of cooperation between Daniel's research and the textbook readings is that not only are there copious amounts of data in regards to media effects on girls and women regarding those sexualized images, but there's also a myriad amount of documentation regarding the problematic impact of idealized and sexualized images on women, and the female viewers of their own body image. Okay. So the textbook also connects with that and states that unhealthy negative body image, UNBI, causes problematic levels of emotional stress, interpersonal problems, and risky behavior among women. So those would certainly be connections between the two. Second question, what is Daniel's hypothesis about the impact of images of women athletes on girls and women? So in order to answer this, there's a two-prong outcome or approach to the hypothesis, or at least the results, and that would be a positive and a negative aspect. So we'll start with the positive first. So non-sexualized or performance-based images focus on physical ability, athletic skill, and instrumental inspiration. So that is to say that the non-sexualized images with the adolescent girls or college women that were viewing these were able to focus on the physical ability, the performance base of the athletes, and were able to use them as instrumental inspiration for their own aspirations of achieving and improving their physical athletic prowess. So we'll go ahead and go toward the negative here. So sexualized images, of course, focus on women as sex objects, fosters self-objectification in female viewers of media, which would lead to body dissatisfaction. Okay, we'll go to the next question. How does she go about studying this? Well, first, Daniel's samples 350 adolescent girls, they're from grades 8 to 12, originating out of the Central Coast of California, location there. And the girls received a nutrition bar and a media literacy workshop as compensation for their participation. So the other aspect are 225 college women from the same location, that is to say, a University of California within the Central Coast location. They were psychology students, and they received college credit for their participation as compensation in this case study. Okay, so how does she go about studying? We'll continue with that. There are 4 categories of photos that were available for the subjects to view. These are the 4 categories. 1, sexualized female athletes. 2, performance-based, that is to say, non-sexualized female athletes. The 3rd would be sexualized models, and the 4th and last would be non-sexualized models. So all the subjects viewed images, and those images were 20 that were divided by the 4 categories, so 5 images within the image types, okay, that we just went through. And after viewing the images, the subjects were asked to participate within a written exercise asking 2 questions. So, in the sake of time, I'm going to summarize the question. So, the first question would be, after looking at the photograph, how did the woman in that photograph make you feel? And the second question would be, give the photograph that you've seen a title that captures the theme of the photograph. Okay, and then of course after that data was provided, it was collected, and then coding teams were used to analyze the surveys. The coding teams, of course, were psychology students. Next question. What sorts of images of women athletes does the author find has a positive effect on girls? So the analyst found that her hypothesis was correct, okay, that performance-based, non-sexualized female athlete images had a positive effect on girls. So I found a quote that I thought would be very appropriate for this particular part here. Quote, performance images of women athletes have the potential to empower female viewers to focus on what their bodies can do, unquote. And of course, that is a quote from Elizabeth A. Daniels, the originator of the case study in 2009, page 415 of her case study. Next question. How do you think this research could be used to change the way media presents women athletes? Well, there are quite a few ways in which this data could be used to change the way that media presents women athletes. So the first one, this study and future ones like it, of course, could promote a more appropriately focused perspective on the female athlete. So instead of looking at her body image for the sake of looking at that image and then promoting a body dissatisfaction where a woman may think, I'll never have a body like that, or, just think that I won't be able to achieve what she has achieved based upon looks alone. They could actually go ahead and look at the physical prowess of the person by a performance-based image and then work toward the physical application or the physical skill as opposed to the look of the body. Okay. A second point would be to stop the cycle of girls viewing themselves as mere sexual objects and to maintain the source of competition within the scope of the sport and not physical appearance or beauty. So once again, not being misdirected or distracted by the physical appearance of the athlete, but to keep the competition where it should be. That is to say, not to compete against the physical appearance of the athlete, but to strive for being able to have that physical skill and prowess that the athlete needs to execute their sport. Okay. So, an important question, as I said before, how can Christians use this type of research to share biblical and Christian worldview perspectives? So, I'm going to do this a little bit different here, and basically the theology that I use as a lens to perceive the world dictates the necessity of this, excuse me. So instead of looking at Scripture or a Christian worldview and having the data corroborate the Scripture, I'm going to flip that around. I'm going to have the Scripture, the truth of God's almighty word and most holy word, to make the premise, and then see that the data actually corroborates or testifies to Scripture. So from here, a biblical perspective of women would discourage looking at them by both sexes, okay, as primarily an object of sexual desire. Okay, and so the Bible verse that I picked here is 1 Peter 3, 3 through 4. Hear now the words of God. Do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. Emphasis mine. Okay. So we can look and we can see that physical beauty is a gift from God, but it was never meant to be idolized. Okay. Whether that's from a lustful aspect from a male perspective, which is not the scope of this study, but certainly a point of envy or jealousy or discontentment or hopelessness or despair or depression from that body dissatisfaction that women may be looking at when they look at an elite level athlete who has spent many hours in the gym and has sacrificed many different things that they could have done with their life, and they chose to, chisel their body into this fine machine. There are women that can look at that and either be discontent or intimidated or have some sort of despair or just jealousy or envy within that. That's an idolizing of the body. So there's one thing that we could certainly appreciate a body, feminine or masculine, but in this case feminine, within, that being a creation of God, that being a good thing. And we can do that without going off into a sinful viewpoint, which would be to idolize it. So, and keep in mind, looking at the verse here, it says here in the second part, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. So the world, that present system that seeks to have success and please itself outside of God, okay, and outside of his Christ, may look at physical appearance as very, very super important. But if we look at the scripture here, the Apostle Peter tells us that what God himself considers very precious is the hidden person of the heart with imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. So we could see a conflict between this worldview that is certainly being espoused by media effect and what God himself thinks. Okay, theology lesson over. So the last question is, propose a way to utilize this research to help adolescent girls. Okay, so one would be to create an interactive presentation where the girls in a course or at a school participate in this very survey. And then the next thing that you would do is you would reveal the results of the case study before reviewing the results. So what I mean when I say that is that you would have these girls participate in the survey. And then after they participated in the survey, you would reveal the case study results to them before reviewing their own. That way they could see that there's a similarity of the answers between theirs and the original participants. Okay, and then of course we can reinforce the reality of those outcomes through future sessions so that adolescent girls or college-aged women are forewarned and forearmed with very helpful data to let them know that they are more than just objects of attraction. Okay, they're created in the image of God. Beauty is a good thing. Beauty is a gift, but it's not to be idolized. And through that message, through the data and certainly through the message of the gospel, we can attack that idolization and that those roots of bitterness, envy, and discontent that can creep up and take root in a woman's heart. Okay? Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that you're spending time here listening to my presentation. Of course, certainly if you have any other comments or opinions in regards, or reflections or pushback in regards to some of the things that I've discussed, please, I welcome hearing and or reading, since this is a discussion board, your perspectives and opinions in the dialogue that will happen as the second part of our research, or the second part of our assignment here. Okay, so everybody have a super weekend.